wounded and abandoned, until the human found her. The moon had no name. It was listed in coalition records as a mining body, stripped of value decades ago and forgotten soon after. Now it was nothing more than broken rock, frozen dust, and the silent remains of a war no one wanted to remember. Smoke still drifted from the battlefield, thin and gray against the black sky. Wrecked ships lay scattered across the surface like the bones of dead giants. Metal groaned as it cooled. Energy fires flickered and died. The war was over here. Everyone else was gone. Beneath a shattered reconnaissance craft, Sci-Fi lay trapped. She was still alive, but only barely. Her left side burned with pain where shrapnel had torn through her armor. One of her lower limbs was pinned under a fallen support beam. Every breath felt sharp, like broken glass inside her chest. Her species' blood glowed faintly blue as it leaked into the gray dust beneath her. Sci-Fi activated her suit's emergency beacon with shaking fingers. A soft pulse of light blinked once, then again. The signal went out into the void, carrying her location, rank, and status. Scout Commander, critically wounded, awaiting extraction. She closed her eyes, forcing herself to stay calm. The coalition would come. They always did. At least that was what she had believed. Hours passed. The sky did not change. The stars did not move. No engines roared in the distance. No rescue craft descended through the thin atmosphere. Sci-Fi checked her suit's display. The beacon was still active, but the power level was dropping faster than expected. Damage to the antenna reduced its range. It was possible, unlikely, but possible, that the signal was not reaching the fleet. She sent a manual burst anyway, routing power from her shields. Pain flared as systems shut down one by one to support the transmission. Still, there was no answer. Coalition doctrine echoed in her thoughts, words drilled into her since training. Extraction windows are limited. Personnel recovery is secondary to fleet survival. Losses below 5% are acceptable. She had memorized those rules. She had enforced them. Now she lay beneath wreckage, wondering if she had just become a statistic. By the second cycle, her suit warned her of internal bleeding. By the third, her vision began to blur at the edges. Sci-Fi forced herself to remain awake. Her species entered a healing trance when unconscious, but it required stable conditions and medical support. Alone, slipping into that state could mean never waking again. She focused on memories instead. Her first command. Her first successful deep space recon mission. The pride she had felt wearing coalition colors. She had believed in the coalition. That belief cracked a little more each hour no one came. On the fourth cycle, her beacon died. The light blinked once, then went dark. Sci-Fi stared at it in silence. No alarms sounded. No dramatic failure message appeared. The system simply stopped, as if even the machine understood there was no point anymore. She did not scream. Sci-Fi had been trained better than that. Instead, she did something far worse. She laughed. It was a weak sound, broken by pain, but it carried bitter understanding. The coalition had received her signal. They had known she was alive. They had simply decided she was not worth the risk. She was wounded. She was alone. And now, officially, she was dead. The moon grew colder. Without full suit power, her body struggled to regulate temperature. Frost formed along the edges of her armor. Her breathing slowed, each inhale shallow and forced. She tried to move her trapped limb again. The beam did not shift. Energy drained from her muscles. Pain dulled, replaced by numbness, a dangerous sign. Her thoughts became slower, heavier. So this is how it ends, she thought. Not in battle, not in command, but forgotten. A vibration passed through the ground. At first, Sci-Fi thought it was her imagination, a side effect of blood loss. But then it came again. A low, steady tremor, rhythmic and mechanical. Engines. Her eyes snapped open. She activated her remaining sensors, rerouting power from non-essential systems. The display flickered, unstable, but it showed something impossible. A ship, small, ungainly, clearly not coalition design. It descended without proper clearance signals, ignoring debris warnings, and settled clumsily onto the surface a short distance away. Dust and ice scattered outward from its landing thrusters. Sarakai stared in disbelief. No coalition markings, no swarm signatures. The ship's profile matched something she had only seen in outdated intelligence reports: a human vessel. Humans were not part of the coalition. They were classified as minor independent operators, too divided, too emotional, too unpredictable to be reliable allies. The coalition had chosen not to involve them in the war. Most members assumed humanity would stay far away from a battlefield like this. Apparently they were wrong. A ramp lowered from the ship's side with a hydraulic hiss. A single figure stepped out. He wore a patched environmental suit, scratched and mismatched, clearly repaired many times. His movements were cautious but steady. In his hands he carried a cutting tool, not a weapon but something meant for salvage work. He scanned the wreckage slowly, carefully, like someone who expected danger but not combat. Sarakai's heart raced. If he found her, what would he do? Humans were known for trading, scavenging, and survival work. They avoided official conflict zones unless profit outweighed risk. A wounded alien officer offered no clear reward. Her suit struggled to process air. She tried to call out, but only a weak sound escaped her throat. The human paused. His head turned. He heard her. Elia's Trent froze. The sound was faint, almost lost beneath the whisper of cooling metal, but it wasn't wind. He adjusted his helmet sensors and followed the signal. As he moved closer, his breath caught. Pinned beneath wreckage lay an alien, not dead, alive. Her armor was shattered. Blood stained the ground beneath her. Her chest rose and fell unevenly, each breath a fight. Elias swore softly inside his helmet. This was bad. This was very bad. Coalition territory, war remains. A wounded officer. Helping her could bring legal trouble, heavy fines, maybe worse. He was a salvager, not a hero. His ship was barely holding together as it was. He should leave. Anyone sensible would. Sarakai watched him through fading vision. She saw the hesitation. She understood it. She had seen that same look on officers deciding whether a rescue was worth it. Her body trembled as cold and exhaustion pulled at her mind. She did not beg. She had no strength left for that. If this was the end, she would meet it with dignity. Elias stepped closer. He knelt beside her, scanning her injuries with his suit's basic medical reader. The readings made his stomach tighten. Alien biology, severe trauma, internal damage, way above his pay grade. He looked back at his ship, then back at her. "She's alive," he muttered. "That means something." He activated his suit's external speakers. "Hey," he said, voice calm but firm, "don't pass out, I'm here." Sarakai focused on the sound, on the impossible warmth in his tone. The human reached for the beam, pinning her down, and stopped. He assessed, thought, adjusted his grip. Carefully, slowly, he began cutting through the wreckage instead of forcing it. Time passed. But for the first time since the beacon went dark, Sarakai felt something unfamiliar stir in her chest. Not doctrine, not duty. Hope. Elia's Trent worked slowly. Too fast and the wreckage could shift. Too slow and the alien under it might die. He adjusted the power on his cutting tool, keeping the heat low. Sparks hissed softly as metal weakened and split. The broken support beam trembled, then settled into a safer position. Sarakai felt the pressure on her trapped limb lessen. She gasped, a sharp sound that echoed inside her helmet. Pain rushed back, bright and fierce, but she welcomed it. Pain meant she was still alive. The human noticed. "Easy," he said, his voice steady. "I've got you, just stay with me." She did not understand every word, but she understood the meaning. No one had spoken to her like that since before the evacuation. When the beam finally came free, Elias braced it with a piece of nearby wreckage before pulling it away completely. He expected blood, maybe even bone. What he saw made him pause. Her limb was damaged, badly bruised and bleeding, but not crushed. Her armor had taken the worst of the impact. "You're tougher than you look," he muttered. Carefully, he slid an emergency support under her leg and sealed the largest breach in her armor with quick-drying patch foam. It was not designed for alien use, but it was better than nothing. Sarakai felt warmth spread where the foam sealed. The bleeding slowed. Her vision cleared slightly. She focused on the human's faceplate. She could not see his eyes, but she could sense his attention, his focus entirely on her survival. It was unsettling. Getting her onto the ship was harder. Elias used a gravlift harness, adjusting the settings again and again until her weight balanced correctly. Each movement sent waves of pain through Sarakai's body, but she did not cry out. She refused to give the moon that satisfaction. As they rose, she caught one last glimpse of the battlefield below. Wreckage, ash, silence, a graveyard. She turned her gaze away. Inside the ship, the air felt different, warmer, cleaner. Elias laid her carefully on the medical table, if it could be called that. It was really just a reinforced bench with straps, but he activated every comfort system it had. The ship's computer chirped with warning tones as it struggled to analyze her biology. "Yeah, I know," Elias said. "She's not standard." He removed his helmet and wiped sweat from his face. Dark hair stuck to his forehead. His eyes were tired but alert. Sarakai watched him closely. He did not look like a warrior. He looked like someone who had survived by being careful, stubborn, and a little bit lucky. Elias ran a basic scan, then frowned. "Internal injuries," he said quietly, "and you're losing more energy than you should." He checked the ship's limited medical supplies. Most were designed for humans. None were meant for glowing blue blood or unfamiliar organs. He exhaled slowly. "Okay," he said, "we'll figure this out." Sarakai tried to speak. Her throat burned. The sound that came out was rough and broken. "Why?" Elias looked up, surprised. "Why what?" "Why help me?" Her voice was weak, but the words were clear. Elias blinked. He thought for a moment, then gave a small shrug. "Because you're hurt," he said, "and I was here." Sarakai stared at him. "That is not logical." He smiled faintly. "Yeah, I hear that a lot." Hours passed as Elias worked. He adjusted temperature, pressure, and air mix. He improvised a blood stabilizer using nanofilters and emergency nutrients. He spoke aloud as he worked, explaining what he was doing, not because she needed to know, but because silence made the fear louder. Sarakai drifted in and out of awareness. Each time she woke, the human was still there. He did not leave. In the quiet moments, her thoughts turned dark. The coalition would mark her as lost, her command reassigned, her name removed from active rosters. Even if she survived, there would be questions. Why had she been found by a human? Why had no coalition ship returned? She felt shame twist in her chest, not because she had been saved, but because she had been abandoned. When she woke again, the pain was duller. Elias sat nearby, eating something from a sealed container. He noticed her eyes open and quickly stood. "Hey," he said. "Good, that's good." She studied him. "You should have left," she said quietly. "Helping me puts you at risk." He shrugged again. "Everything puts me at risk." "That is not an answer." He considered that. "All right," he said. "Here's a better one. If I left you there, I wouldn't be able to live with it." Sarakai did not respond. She did not understand that kind of thinking, but part of her wanted to. The ship shuddered lightly as it lifted off the moon. Sarakai felt the movement through the table straps. Fear spiked briefly, then settled when Elias checked her vitals again. "We're heading away from the battlefield," he said. "Safe for space, at least for now." "Why not contact the coalition?" she asked. Elias hesitated. "Your people don't like unregistered human ships," he said carefully, "and I don't trust how they'd react to finding you on mine." Sarakai closed her eyes. She could not argue. As time passed, her strength slowly returned. Not fully, not even close, but enough to think clearly. She watched how Elias treated his ship, how he spoke to it like a living thing, how he fixed problems instead of ignoring them, how he checked her condition even when exhausted. There was no command in his actions, no calculation of value, just choice. "You could still turn me over," she said at one point. "There may be a reward." Elias snorted softly. "Yeah, or a firing squad. You do not know that. I know enough." He looked at her, serious now. "I didn't save you for money." Sarakai felt something tighten in her chest. She turned her gaze away. Later, alarms sounded, not loud, just enough to be worrying. Elias checked the sensors, his face darkening. "Scavenger pings," he muttered, "or worse." "What will you do?" Sarakai asked. He didn't answer right away. "Then, I won't let them find you." Her eyes widened slightly. "That could endanger you." He met her gaze. "So be it." For the first time since waking on the battlefield, Sarakai felt truly afraid, not of death, but of what it meant that a stranger would risk everything for her. Her people had rules. Humans had something else, and she was beginning to realize how dangerous that could be. The ship altered course, engines humming with quiet determination. Behind them, the dead moon faded into darkness. Ahead, unknown space waited. And between them, a bond was forming, fragile, unplanned, and impossible to ignore. The ship drifted through quiet space, its engines running low and steady. Elias kept the power minimal. No sharp turns, no sudden jumps. He wanted to look like just another piece of junk floating between forgotten systems. But space was never truly empty. Something was following them. Sarakai sensed the change before Elias said anything. The ship felt tense, like a living thing holding its breath. The soft hum of the engines shifted, almost too quiet to notice. Elias stood at the control panel, shoulders tight, eyes locked on the sensor display. "You are being hunted," she said. Elias did not look at her. "Yeah," he replied. "That's what I was hoping you wouldn't notice yet." Her fingers tightened against the straps of the medical table. "Who is it?" "Could be scavengers," he said. "Could be worse." "Define worse," he sighed. "The Vierks don't always leave battlefields clean." That word sent a cold wave through Sarakai. The Vierks swarm. The same enemy that had torn through coalition lines. The same force that had left her bleeding under wreckage while her fleet retreated. "If they find us," she said slowly, "your ship will not survive." "I know." "Then you must leave me," she said. "Jettison my pod, they will focus on me." Elias finally turned. "No, that is the logical choice." "Don't care," she stared at him. "You will die." "Maybe," he said, "but I won't do that." The sensors chirped again, closer now. Elias moved fast. He powered down non-essential systems, dumped excess cargo, and altered course toward a nearby debris field, remnants of an old mining operation. "Hold on," he said. "This is going to get rough." The ship slipped into the debris field, weaving between broken asteroids and rusted metal frames. Elias flew with sharp focus, hands steady, reacting on instinct more than thought. Sarakai watched in silence. This was not how coalition pilots flew. They relied on formations, shared data, strict protocols. Elias relied on himself, and somehow it worked, for a moment. The ship shuddered as something struck the hull. Alarms flared red. Elias cursed under his breath. "They tagged us," he said, "tracking pulse." The screen lit up with hostile signatures, not scavengers, Vierks, 3 ships, small, fast, and hungry. Sarakai closed her eyes. "It is over," she said quietly. Elias shook his head. "Not yet." He cut engines completely. The sudden silence felt wrong. The ship drifted, hidden among the debris, cold and dark. Sarakai felt fear rise, not loud but heavy. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "Playing dead," Elias said. "Humans are good at that." They waited. Seconds stretched into minutes. The Vierk ships passed close, scanning, their presence pressing against Sarakai's mind like static. One ship paused, drifting slowly, sensors probing. Sarakai's breathing grew shallow. If they were found, Elias would not escape, and neither would she. The Vierk ship moved on. Elias exhaled slowly, but relief lasted only a moment. The tracking pulse flared again. "They know we're here," he muttered. "They're just taking their time." Sarakai opened her eyes. "Then we must fight." Elias looked at her sharply. With what? She pushed herself upright, pain flashing through her body. With me, Elias protested. She ignored him. Sarakai forced herself to stand, gripping the table for support. Her injuries screamed in protest, but she pushed through it. You do not have weapons, she said. But you have wreckage, she explained quickly. Vyark's ships were fast but fragile. They relied on shields and fear. They did not expect resistance from a lone salvage vessel. If we turn this debris field into a trap, she said, they will follow. And then? Elias asked. Then we hurt them. Working together, they prepared. Elias rigged old mining charges from his cargo hold. Sarakai guided placement, using her tactical knowledge to predict Vyark's movement. They attached charges to drifting metal, creating false targets and explosive clouds. Elias' hands shook not from fear but from exhaustion. Sarakai noticed. You should rest, she said. He laughed bitterly. After this. The engines flared to life. The ship burst from hiding, racing through the debris field like a wounded animal. The Vyarks took the bait. They followed, fast, too fast. Elias dodged and rolled, pulling the ships exactly where Sarakai predicted. He triggered the charges one by one. Explosions lit the darkness. Debris became weapons. One Vyark's ship shattered, torn apart by spinning metal and fire. The second lost its shields and veered off damaged. The third stayed on them, relentless. The ship shook violently as a blast grazed the hull. Elias slammed a fist into the controls. We can't outrun it. Sarakai stepped closer, steady despite the pain. Then we do not run. She pointed to a cluster of dense wreckage ahead. If you fly there, they will follow. They always do. And then, she met his eyes, I will guide you. They flew straight into chaos. Metal screamed past the hull. Alarms blared. Elias trusted her voice completely, turning when she said turn, diving when she said dive. The Vyark ship followed too close, too eager. At the last moment, Elias cut power and rolled hard. The Vyark ship did not. It slammed into the wreckage, shields failing under sudden pressure. The impact tore through its core. Silence followed. Elias sat back, breathing hard. Then he laughed, a short, broken sound filled with disbelief. We did it, he said. Sarakai's strength failed her. She collapsed. When she woke, the ship was quiet again. Safe. Elias sat nearby, asleep in his chair, arms crossed, head tilted forward. Sarakai watched him for a long time. He had risked everything, not because of orders, not because of reward, but because he refused to abandon someone. Her people would not understand this. The galaxy would not understand this, but it would learn. She whispered softly, more to herself than to him. My people left me. Elias stirred slightly. But you did not. For the first time since the war began, Sarakai did not feel alone. The coalition fleet arrived 3 days later. Sarakai felt them before she saw them. The familiar pattern of engines, the ordered formation, the calm certainty of power. For most of her life, that sight had meant safety. Now it made her uneasy. Elias slowed the ship but did not power down weapons or shields. What little he had left he kept ready. They won't like seeing me, he said. They will not like seeing me either, Sarakai replied quietly. A coalition cruiser moved forward, weapons inactive but present. A command channel opened. This is Coalition Command Vessel TCS Valkyr, a voice said. Unidentified human ship, you are ordered to power down and prepare for inspection. Elias glanced at Sarakai. She nodded once. He complied. They were escorted into the cruiser's hangar. Coalition soldiers surrounded the human ship the moment it landed. Their weapons were raised, their movements controlled and exact. They expected resistance. They did not expect to see Sarakai walk out alive. Gasps rippled through the hangar. A senior officer stepped forward, eyes wide. Scout Commander Sarakai, he said. You were listed as lost. I was, she replied. That listing was incorrect. The officer's gaze shifted to Elias. And this human, Sarakai did not hesitate. He is the reason I am standing here. They brought her before the council chamber. Elias was told to wait outside. He did not like that, but Sarakai met his eyes and said, "I will return." And for some reason he believed her. The council chamber was vast and cold. Tall figures sat in raised positions, their expressions calm, unreadable. Data screens displayed battle reports, casualty numbers, strategic outcomes. One screen showed Sarakai's name, status, deceased in action. She stood beneath it. "I am alive," she said, "because a human chose to save me." A low murmur spread. A counselor spoke. "Your beacon failed, extraction windows were closed, losses were within acceptable range." Sarakai felt something harden inside her. "My beacon did not fail," she said. "It was active. You received it." Silence followed. She continued. "You chose not to come." The words struck harder than any weapon. The council tried to redirect. They spoke of strategy, of necessity, of survival percentages. Sarakai listened. Then she spoke again. "You abandoned me," she said. "And a human, an outsider you consider unreliable, risked everything to save me. He had no orders, no reward, no reason that fits your calculations." She lifted her chin. "He did it anyway." A counselor leaned forward. "Why would a human do this?" Sarakai answered without pause. "Because humans do not measure lives the way we do." She told them everything. The battlefield, the darkness. The moment Elias turned back instead of leaving, the days of care, the fight against the Orcs. "He could have escaped," she said. "He chose not to. He could have sacrificed me, he refused." The chamber remained silent. At last the lead counselor spoke. "What do you request, Scout Commander?" Sarakai's answer was clear. "Do not punish him." A pause, "And," the counselor asked, "and reconsider humanity." Elias waited. Time passed slowly. He watched coalition soldiers move with perfect discipline. He wondered if he had made the worst mistake of his life. Then Sarakai returned. She walked toward him, steady, proud. "You are not under arrest," she said. He blinked. "That's good." "They have questions," she continued, "and concerns." "Yeah, that tracks." She allowed herself a small smile. "But they are listening." The official announcement came hours later. Humanity's status was changed. No longer minor independent operators. They were reclassified as strategic irregular allies. The reason was simple and deeply troubling to the coalition. A species that does not abandon its wounded cannot be predicted by normal models, and therefore cannot be ignored. Elias was offered compensation. He refused. They offered protection. He declined that too. "What will you do now?" Sarakai asked as they stood beside his ship. "I'll keep salvaging," he said. "Maybe avoid war zones for a while." She nodded. "I will return to duty." There was a pause. Then she added, "But not the same way." Before she left, she stopped. "My people will study this," she said. "They will write reports, change doctrine." He smiled faintly. "Humans don't really do doctrine." "I know," she replied. "That is why you are dangerous." As Elias prepared to depart, a coalition officer approached. "You may go," the officer said, "but understand this. If you abandon a human in coalition space, there will be consequences." Elias raised an eyebrow. "I wouldn't expect anything less." The officer hesitated. "And if you find one of ours wounded," Elias answered simply, "I won't leave them." His ship lifted off. Sarakai watched it disappear into the stars. For the first time she felt pride, not just in survival but in the truth she now carried. Across the galaxy the story spread. Of a wounded commander, of a human salvager, of a choice made without orders. Other species listened. Some were inspired, some were afraid, all of them took note. In quiet corners of space, new rules began to form. If a human is present, surrender does not guarantee safety, but neither does victory. Because humans fight differently. They fight for each other. And somewhere far from councils and fleets, Elias Trent continued his work. Still careful, still stubborn. Still unwilling to walk away from someone in need. Because that was the most dangerous thing about humanity. They did not leave us.